On your way, Mulberg.
Hey, we're expecting guests.
I thought you said he was writing a book.
Said I was writing an essay, and it requires some shut mouth.
Don't waste your time on those junkyard losers. This country was built on genocide and slavery. We killed all the black guys that were here, and then we shipped in new black guys of our own. And then we brought in Jesus like a bar of soap.
Let's go.
You know it. I am the religious correspondent. Fuck off with your Jesus beliefs. If the Bible's God's book, why didn't he give it to everyone?
A modern day remake of Matthew Vaughn's Layer Kick, a Coen brothers end up with Timothy Chalamet. A Citizen Kane prequel, a Midnight Cowboy sequel, Alvin and the Chipmunks deserving of the squeak. So many new ways to revisit sideways, but a graphic novel is how we choose to update. But we still hold fast, you can't change the past on the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Saludos, casas astelares, boricuas y estrellas brillantes. This is Ruined Childhoods, and on this episode, we are not in a state, but a territory belonging to the US of A. This Commonwealth, also known as the Island of Enchantment, is the birthplace of the Pina Colada, Ricky Martin, and Antonio Banderas. And despite his siblings being born elsewhere, Joaquin Phoenix was also born here. This archipelago is also known for its bioluminescent beaches, rum distilleries, and El Yunque, the only rainforest located in the U.S. You guessed it, we're in Puerto Rico, talking about one of the few features set and filmed in the Commonwealth, the Rum Diary. Dan, what's your poison?
Ricin.
Ricin?
Every time.
That the powerful killing substance from Breaking Bad?
Absolutely. Also came to prominence, I would say, post 9/11 in its powder form when sent to various publications. It was one of the poisons identified. So I would say, yeah, ricin poisoning. Why? What do you go with?
Oh, I was gonna say like just a sparkling water or something. But as far as literal poisons go, I don't really have one.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay. In that case, you were going to go sparkling water. Okay, boy. Now I feel like I feel like, whereas initially I felt like ricin was maybe overstepping a little bit, but I would say my poison would probably coffee.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Coffee is my poison. No, but if we are talking of the beverages of the alcoholic variety, then I would say I would go. It depends on time of day. It depends on activity, etc. I would say, especially for a brunch, a Bloody Mary.
Okay.
Spicy, okay. By the way.
That is in reference to our father who orders who orders Bloody Marys despite not being able to handle spice very well, and then he also orders it without the celery.
Right. Yeah. So nothing to diffuse it, but also no desire for it whatsoever. So I would say I go with a Bloody Mary, and every now and again a gin and tonic, specifically Tanqueray.
Oh,
my gin of choice in the gin and tonic. I don't generally drink liquor straight, except for every now and again, perhaps some whiskey.
Okay.
Every now and again.
Are you ever a rum guy? Just since we're talking about the Rum Diary.
Right. Well, I was trying to think of it, and I would say, like, yes, when on an island, be it a Hawaiian island, a Caribbean island, as they say, when in Rome, but in this, guess in this case, when in rum. Yeah. So I would say in those contexts of the, Mai Tai or any of those, like when you go out on a catamaran and they have a bar and they're making those like green fruity drinks and you drink 1,000 of them. But yeah, I do like those, but I would say I tend not to. I'm very wary of things that will get me too drunk too fast and then will make me feel very, very sick. And rum definitely falls under that category. A pina colada, a nice pina colada, something that I can sip poolside, perhaps.
An invention of Puerto Rico, as previously stated.
Indeed. Pina coladas are a well-made pina colada with a nice chunk of pineapple in there is splendid.
Yeah, not
Absolutely
like something from
splendid.
like a mix or something like that. Something that's going to be like fresh ingredients.
Right. It's not the type of thing I'm going to do at home, really.
Right.
It's a nice idea, but it's the type of thing where in the right place, a pina colada is absolutely my poison. So what's my poison, John? Well, there you go. You've got about a dozen of them.
There's a few poisons there.
Just named. So what, and you sparkling water?
You know, I haven't been drinking alcohol. I feel like I drink alcohol maybe 3 times a year max. And usually if it's like I'm in a social situation where it's like I'm going out with somebody for like a networking purpose and it's like grabbing a drink and it's like, well, I don't want to make the other person feel uncomfortable by like ordering a club soda if they're getting a beer or something. And so it's like, I'll get a beer and, or it's like maybe a tequila soda, something like that. But certainly not something that I'm drawn to. I feel like I'm just like, yeah, we don't need that. We don't need that in our lives right now.
Right. Yeah. It's not something it's something where every now and again it's like, oh yeah, yes, that would be nice. I named far too many drinks for that to sound genuine, what I just said. And of course, as you're mentioning that, I'm like, oh, sake. I really like sake.
Oh, okay.
But
there are some times where I do think like it would be nice to have just like a glass of wine right now. But here's my problem. I'm a very slow drinker. And so for me to consume an entire beverage, if it's a cocktail, by the time I'm like towards the middle of it, it's already like watered down by the ice or it's gone flat. If it's something that's either sparkling or a beer, it's like, I don't go through it quickly enough. Wine is something where it's like, it's not temperature dependent and it is flat. No. And so it's a little bit easier to handle, but you know, it's got to be a good one or else you get the headaches and it's just unpleasant. And I don't know. I'm too old for that nonsense.
Too old for this shit.
I know. Even though wine is certainly not a young person's beverage, typically.
We're not talking Boone's Farm here.
No.
No, we're talking classy stuff like at least $20 a bottle, at least.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I for me, wine, I found myself getting heartburn a lot from wine.
Bummer.
And I like a good glass of red wine every now and again, perhaps with a dinner and like an Italian meal, perhaps a nice red wine. And the nice thing about red wine is really room temperature is, I mean, I'm sure our sommelier listeners out there are just yelling at me right now.
Roomchildhoodspot@gmail.com. Yell at Dan.
Room temperature is probably, perhaps slightly chilled, but close to room temperature. At room temperature is probably the ideal serving temperature for red wine. But I'm either like that, like I drink it too slowly and it gets watered down, or I drink it too fast and I get liquored up.
Oh.
So,
and for many, that's the point.
But I don't know. I don't like that. I like to really, I'm kind of done with that. And I don't mind a nice little buzz, but
I will also indicate one of my 3 times in the past year that I've had alcohol was on this podcast when we did Smokey and the Bandit, and I sipped a Coors Light and almost yacked because it was just nasty.
Well, I mean, yeah, that was a conscious choice.
I knew what I was getting myself into. I forgot what it tasted like, and no regrets. We're okay. Everything is fine. I didn't finish the beer. I had like 3 sips.
Did you buy more than one can, or did you just? Okay, all right, good, yeah.
A singular tall boy.
Yeah. Okay. just for the purposes of the episode.
For the visuals, which at the time we weren't even releasing our video podcasts, so I don't even know if that one
For the mood,
we have as
for the
video
atmosphere.
right? But on that note, if anybody does want to watch these episodes, they can go on YouTube. It's Ruined Childhoods Pod on YouTube, or you can watch these video podcasts on Spotify, which has been fun. So I just uploaded all the ones that we have available that have our live video. If you want to look at our faces, if you care enough to see what we got going on. Also, it's like I try to add in when I'm editing some fun visual things going on that are, that make it pop. So if you like to watch
Nice
your
little
podcasts,
bonus.
there we go.
Nice little bonus for you if you're on Spotify or YouTube. Hi.
Also on
smiling
Spotify,
at
for
you.
each episode, Spotify has a cool thing where instead of like writing a review for the show, I don't even know if they have that function as like a whole for the entire show, but for each episode, you can, as the people who host the podcast can pose a question. So for each one, I try to ask a relevant question on Spotify.
Okay.
So look out for those as we release each of the episodes on Spotify, and chime in because we'd love to hear from you. Also, if you want to just talk to us, ruinchildhoodspod@gmail.com, or you can go to ruinchildhoodspod.com to see where all the stuff is. But Dan, I want to talk a little bit about Hunter S. Thompson.
Let's talk about Hunter S. Thompson.
Because, you are a high school language arts teacher, so you're not afraid of cracking a book. And from what I remember, you actually are quite a fan of the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
I'm a fan of the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. It is an imperfect, it is definitely a flawed film. But it is also a Terry Gilliam 1990s
A flawed person.
film, which yes, indeed. But in terms of his film output in the 1990s, I would say that's really the strength. And it of course I think The Fisher King is his best film.
I agree
Overall, as we've talked about, but also 12 Monkeys being
12 Monkeys is brilliant. Brazil is so good.
Mm-hmm.
So there's plenty of Terry Gilliam to like.
Absolutely. I had
Baron
plenty of his films.
Munchausen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I would say that like these three in the 90s, and I think it was just these three really stand out. And with Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, I had read the book in college. I still have my copy of it that I bought way back in the day at Rutgers. And I remember I saw Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas at the General Cinemas in like Somerset, New Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember it was like a smaller movie theater. I remember seeing a few things there in college, and Fear and Loathing being one of them. And I remember thinking that I liked the movie, but I liked the movie because I read the book and knew what to expect, which is not necessarily a story,
right,
but more a reflection. And like Hunter S. Thompson wasn't necessarily he wasn't a hippie.
Right.
He was anti-establishment.
He was counterculture.
He was counterculture.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But he also wasn't a, make love, not war hippie. He was it was very common. I feel like a lot of his ideals just came from like common sense. And this is like, why do we do this bullshit? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like he didn't have any tolerance for bureaucracy or the general bullshit.
Right.
Also a very flawed person. You see, I think, in his writing, especially in the Rum Diary, which I haven't read. I listened to
Oh, okay.
a few chapters of the audiobook.
Does Johnny
hear
Depp
it,
read the
and-
audiobook?
What's that?
Does Johnny Depp read the audiobook?
Oh, no.
Really? That's
no.
surprising.
Yeah, no, at least none of the audiobooks that I've been listening to, which actually I wanted, Spotify, which has audiobooks, which is wonderful. As a language arts teacher, that I can tell my students that there are audiobooks on Spotify.
Right.
Is actually really fantastic.
Cool.
So anyway, that's it. Enough flattery for Spotify. But yeah, so Hunter S. Thompson, what I appreciated about him, and this is kind of echoing what Matt Taibbi, who's a journalist, Matt Taibbi, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing his name correctly, who writes the foreword to Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail 72 in its like 50th anniversary edition, or a 40th anniversary edition, came out in 2012. But what he wrote was that, like, whereas other journalists who were covering politics would go home and tell their families, their partners, what the campaign was really like, as opposed to what was in the journalism. Matt said Hunter S. Thompson's wife didn't need to ask, because he did not pull any punches, and like any friends that he had became enemies once he was covering them, because he wasn't going to pull punches for anyone on either side. So I think that's what I appreciate about his writing.
Sure.
Even if I don't necessarily always agree with his views, he definitely, I would say, is not exactly progressive in terms of his treatment of women.
Yeah.
In his writing.
Correct.
And possibly in his life. I don't know that much more about him. I know he was a gun nut.
Well, I mean, after he died, he was shot out of a cannon. Like, he lived and died the way that he wanted to, and he didn't hide who he was. No. And certainly that appealed to somebody like Johnny Depp, who, when, researching his role for Fear and Loathing, became really close friends with Hunter S. Thompson, famously. I mean, it's likely that if you're listening to this, you probably already know all this stuff, or probably know way more about it than I do, or maybe even Dan, although Dan, I feel like you probably know more than I do.
Well, I listened to, and I didn't go through the whole thing, but at least half of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Recently listened to the commentary track. It's a combination of one of the producers who was a partner of Hunter S. Thompson's and very close friend, and I think handled getting a lot of his like writing adapted. She's not listed as a producer on the Rum Diary, so
okay.
At least with Fear and Loathing, she was very closely involved with getting Fear and Loathing turned into a film. So she talks about that, and it's intercut a produced commentary between her, Johnny Depp, and Benicio del Toro.
Cool.
Who are all kind of coming at things differently. And as I think her name was Nina. Sorry, I'm blanking on her name, but she talks about like the real, Hunter, and who he was and what he was like, and what he thought of this, and she thought he would have thought of this.
Yeah.
Johnny Depp, who, like you said, got very close to Hunter Thompson as he was researching this role and getting ready to play it. Whereas Benicio del Toro was playing this real person, this real lawyer, Oscar Gutierrez, I think was his name, who had died. So Benicio didn't have anybody to,
right.
He didn't go and spend, I think Johnny Depp spent 3 months in Colorado with Thompson.
Yeah. And probably went back like 100 more times.
Well, I mean, Thompson didn't die until 2005.
Something like that. Yeah.
It's at the end of Rum Diary. It's also easily researchable.
Certainly, yeah. And it was during that time that Johnny Depp had kind of found the manuscript for the book that Hunter Thompson wrote for Rum Diary, and the intention was to get the book published while also simultaneously turning it into a film. And that's what what's that?
Had it not been previously published?
It was not published until Johnny Depp. I mean, this is the lore that, you know, Johnny Depp is saying, although the published date is undeniable. But it was definitely shelved. Like, it was just something that he hadn't even necessarily finished, but was a chronicle of his experience, essentially fictionalized in certain ways, but a chronicle of his own experience going to Puerto Rico to write. I think that he was going there to write, I think, like sports journalism. What are you seeing? You're pointing at me.
Yeah. So just to kind of go back, because here I was thinking like, oh, just because it was written in 1959 doesn't mean it was published in 1959. It was published in 1998.
Exactly.
When Fear and Loathing was, you know, when the film came out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, interesting. Totally missed that bit of the lore there.
No, it's interesting. You know, on the Blu-ray for the Rum Diary, there's no commentary, which kind of surprised me, but there was a behind the scenes featurette. And a lot of it was focusing on the Hunter S. Thompson of it all, because this clearly not only was a friend to Johnny Depp, but Johnny Depp idolized the guy. You know, he lived the way that he wanted to live. And, you know, as we've seen from Johnny Depp's life, it's like he is not one to follow the conventions. And, you know, he does things his way and doesn't really care what people think about it. And that's just kind of the way, you know, he likes those people who, you know, follow their own path. Keith Richards being one of them that he, you know, became close with and, you know, modeled characters after. And for Hunter S. Thompson, you know, he spent so much time with them that when they were actually making the movie, so much of it became about Hunter S. Thompson. I mean, Johnny Depp is not playing Paul Kemp. He's playing Hunter S. Thompson.
Right. Oh, it's this. It's
the same voice.
It is clearly like when you look at, and he's not playing Raoul Duke either, but he's still playing the same character in Fear and Loathing that he is playing in the Rum Diary. Rum Diary is in so many ways a prequel, and it's acknowledged. It's acknowledged at the end of the film. Yeah. Rum Diary is very, very much a prequel to Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
But also on the set of the Rum Diary, and we'll get into a whole synopsis and all that stuff pretty soon. But, you know, Johnny Depp would start each day, and I'm blanking on the director's name.
Bruce Robinson.
Bruce Robinson, that's right. He and Bruce Robinson would start the day with, I forget the particular whiskey that Hunter S. Thompson always would drink on the rocks. They'd have a glass of it, and they'd kind of dip their finger on it and put a little dab behind each ear.
Okay.
and it became like this ritual, and it seemed like the production of the Rum Diary became more about honoring Hunter S. Thompson than I think, like, you know, I think they lost kind of sight on making a movie that is separate from the original writer, you know?
Right. Well, a movie for people who weren't going in expecting a Hunter S. Thompson story.
This is post Pirates of the Caribbean Johnny Depp. And
this is post like 4 of the Pirates of the Caribbean. I mean, how many of the Pirates of the Caribbean had come out by this point?
So many. Yeah, this is 2011. I think Pirates, the first one came out 2002, 2003.
2003 was the first one.
And yeah, so, and he's done like a lot of his like weird little ones like Secret Window and stuff like that. And he's, he's just doing what he wants and not really caring what the audiences are hoping for. What's up?
Okay. So just to bring it back, I think I said that there had been 4 Pirates of the Caribbean by this point. Rum Diary came out in 2011? Let's see. Rum Diary came out in October of 2011. The 4th Pirates of the Caribbean came out in May of 2011.
Hey, good guessing. Way to go.
All right. Kind of surprised. I didn't think the 4th one had actually. I thought I was exaggerating a bit.
No, you nailed it.
Nice.
Nice. Shall we do a little synopsis and really get into Rum Diary?
Why not?
All right. Why not? Sorry.
Wine.
Sorry.
I'm
sorry. Paul Kemp is a young journalist with dreams of writing a novel who is hired by a small newspaper in Puerto Rico to write fluff pieces about tourism and astrology. But 2 things get in the way of what could be an easy buck: his substance abuse and desire to uncover the truths about colonialism in Puerto Rico, shining a light on the locals who are often cast aside by the white land developers looking to exploit the region's pristine beaches. Paul quickly encounters one of these developers, Hal Sanderson, who wants to hire Paul to write propaganda to entice potential hotel investors. Another wrinkle is Hal's girlfriend, Chanel. Paul is instantly drawn to her, but makes sure to keep his distance given her connection to the man who is offering him creature comforts that are otherwise out of his reach: a fancy car and a clean place to stay. Normally, Paul lives with his newspaper colleague, Bob Sala, a quirky newspaperman who moonlights as a cockfight trainer and bettor. They also live with Moberg, sometimes, another white journalist who came to Puerto Rico similarly to Paul. Moberg, ever the cautionary tale, has fully succumbed to his substance abuse and exists on the fringes. Not being one to follow the rules, Paul brings Sala in on a meeting with Sanderson's team of shady businessmen, causing a rift between the group, along with Chanel's removal from Sanderson's picture-perfect home. All that's left for Paul is the newspaper, which is hanging on by a thread. So that's essentially it. Clearly, there's also a romance that blossoms between Paul and Chanel, who's played by Amber Heard, which is the beginning of their famously tumultuous real-life relationship. In many ways, also echoing Hunter S. Thompson's, ways that he approaches relationships. Aaron Eckhart plays Hal Sanderson, who's, I think, perfectly cast. He's so good.
Yes.
Yes. Our boy Michael Rispoli as Sala.
Yeah.
We love Michael Rispoli.
Love Michael Rispoli, and he is almost unrecognizable.
Sure. Yeah. He looks like a Hunter S. Thompson character.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I definitely spent a few minutes like, who is this actor?
Well, when I saw his name pop up in the opening credits, I was like on the lookout. And then I saw him, I was like, oh, great. He's going to be in this entire thing. That's
right.
Great.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, Michael Rispoli, always a joy.
Always a joy. Giovanni Ribisi plays Moberg. Richard Jenkins is the editor of the newspaper, who's great. I thought that Richard Jenkins, given what he was given, did an awesome job. He's always so good.
That is the Richard Jenkins. That's like what it says on his resume. Like we'll make chicken salad out of chicken shit.
We'll be exasperated for money.
We'll be exasperated for money.
That's his MO, and he's so good at it. I feel like he and J.K. Simmons are kind of like alongside each other. Like what one can't do, the other one does really well, but otherwise they can be somewhat interchangeable. But
I would say where J.K. Simmons does like sharp wit and like either like lack of filter or saying what you don't expect, perhaps a little bit stronger. Richard Jenkins does exasperation to perfection.
Absolutely.
In a way that if what I need is exasperation, if it's, let's say, if it's this role or Step Brothers,
totally,
perhaps I'm a Richard Jenkins all the way.
Yeah. You don't really see it in the next movie that we're going to be covering, but we'll get to that on the next episode. So Dan, what'd you think of the Rum Diary?
I thought it was there. It exists. It is a movie. It is
a movie.
It is perhaps at least a partially true story.
Yeah.
It is at least based on his experiences. I'm thinking that perhaps the truth of the matter was not so much that this is what happened to him, but perhaps this is maybe what he fantasized about.
Could be
happening, and that's what he of course that's what you write your novel about. So it is it is what it is. It's got its crazy drug scene, it's got its little special effects moment, it's hallucinatory effects there. You've got your I guess lackadaisical, not necessarily accepting, but apathetic attitude towards Nazism.
Yeah, that part's interesting.
Like how it's just like, oh, so Moberg is into Nazi stuff, and like maybe is not like it's not that long.
Well,
not like he's not German, but
right, but it's like potentially 15 years prior he was a Nazi sympathizer, or was somebody who perhaps after World War II was interested in collecting Nazi memorabilia and was a little bit of a fanboy.
It does lead to one of the laughs of the movie one of the things that, and I'm not necessarily a fan of Giovanni Ribisi, but there was like one line where he's in the apartment and he said something like, because he's got this record of Adolf Hitler speeches, and he's like, hey, how about some Adolf, or like, let's put on some Adolf.
Yeah, like everybody wants to listen to it also.
Right. And the rest of them are like, no, now's not a good time. But the way that he said it is, just kind of like, hey, how about some ABBA?
Right. Yeah, totally.
So I guess I appreciated that part about it. And like you said, the casting of Aaron Eckhart, like that's a great role for him. He does that kind of yuppie, waspy sleaze really well.
Yeah. And I really like Aaron Eckhart, but it's like, how much more can you do with him?
Right. Well, yeah, I would say the Aaron Eckhart, when I think about Aaron Eckhart's career, I pretty much think about The Dark Knight and Aaron Brockovich. And I know that there are other movies.
I think about Thank You for Smoking as well.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Sorry. There we go. Thank You for Smoking, which I haven't revisited in a long time.
It's very good.
But he's wonderful. And that I think that's maybe the peak of the Aaron Eckhart smarm.
Yeah.
He
looks great in a suit. And when he's not wearing a suit, you're just like, something's off. This dude needs to be buttoned up a little bit more.
Except for in Aaron Brockovich, because you didn't really know who he was at that point.
Yeah, that's true. They hadn't figured out.
I remember he's got
recipe.
like kind of more of like Kings of Leon Rhode look in Aaron Brockovich.
Totally. Yeah.
What did you think of Rum Diary?
I wanted to like it. I really like a lot of the, I guess, pre-Pirates Johnny Depp stuff. There was so much good that he did that I just wanted there to be nuggets of that in his later career. And I'm so happy that Pirates makes people, excited about, movies. They're fun adventure movies that have like some weird paranormal shit in them, and it's like it's goofy, and some of them are kind of surprising, but like the whole like mythology of Johnny Depp and those movies I get tired of very quickly.
They should never have nominated him for an Oscar.
Which is strange that happened. But
yeah,
here we are.
Like, not for that. He had done such more interesting work prior to that, and I think was really, and even because like Finding Neverland, I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah,
that
it's fine.
came after. Yeah, but it was like, once he was in that like weird hat, weird voice makeup, whole phase, that was not working for me. What are your like favorite Johnny Depp like roles? I mean, either pre or post Pirates.
Ed Wood.
Okay, yeah.
Ed Wood, definitely. Edward Scissorhands. And any Ed movie is fine. If he was in Ed TV, I'm sure he would have been great in it.
Oh yeah, he would have been.
Another Ed movie. Let's see. Crybaby, I really like.
Crybaby.
I mean, and also, I think this might have been 2011, same year as Rum Diary, but like when he shows up in 21 Jump Street, it's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah,
and it's great. I'm gonna just pull up my the old Johnny Depp filmography because I'm sure that there are so many that I'm not even remembering.
We got to shout out the first Nightmare on Elm Street, the original.
Oh, of
1984
course,
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah. So let's see. Filmography. So
Nick of Time is another favorite.
Nick of Time is fun. Nick of Time is fun. I like Nick of Time.
Christopher Walken.
Yeah. Benny and June is delightful. What's Eating Gilbert Grape is fantastic.
Oh yeah.
I did like The Brave. That was very good.
I never saw that.
Donnie Brasco, he's really good.
Donnie Brasco is a great movie. That is one of my favorite Pacino 90s performances.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Acting, like actual acting, not schmacting.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Blow, I like. Once Upon a Time in Mexico, I really like. That's also 2003, same year as the first Pirates movie.
That's a fun one.
Yeah. 2004, he had a busy year. Secret Window, Happily Ever After, The Libertine, and Finding Neverland. I didn't care for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Corpse Bride was, fine.
Yeah.
Did some more Pirates. Sweeney Todd, I never saw.
Oh, I thought he was good in Sweeney Todd.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there probably could have been a better Sweeney Todd. I remember other people in the cast like Helena Bonham Carter and Alan Rickman being more interesting. Even Sacha Baron Cohen was in that.
Okay. Yeah,
But
I could see
like-
that.
Because, and also I was gonna say anything that he did with Tim Burton in like the aughts is a no-go.
Sleepy Hollow.
Sleepy Hollow was 99 and Sleepy Hollow was all right.
I never saw that one actually.
Again, I feel like he wasn't the best person
right
for that. He was good in Sleepy Hollow. Sleepy Hollow I felt was good but could have been better.
So 2010 he does The Tourist, which is kind of dumb fun.
Never saw it.
Oh, it's it's something. It's Angelina Jolie and Johnny Depp. It's they do their thing. There's a twist. That's kind of what there is. All there is there. Rango, doesn't he do kind of a Hunter S. Thompson thing in Rango?
That's what I've heard. I've never seen Rango. I've heard like there's very mixed things. Like it's a misunderstood masterpiece, but also like it's mid. So
it's mid. Oh, you're hanging around with high schoolers too much.
Seriously.
You're a teacher. It's not a weird thing.
No. Yeah, it's my job.
Yeah. And then we get into like Mordecai, Black Mass. I was distracted.
Black Mass was good.
I feel like if it were somebody else playing Whitey Bulger, I might have liked it a little bit more, but it was more to me just like it's Johnny Depp with a different hairline. It was too distracting for me. It was hard to kind of get him out of my head a little bit.
You kept wanting him to do Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah, right. And then we have things like
I was sitting there in the jury box.
Yeah.
Sorry, jury box. What?
he does the Kevin Smith stuff with Yoga Hosers and Tusk.
He did?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that.
Well, Yoga Hosers is his daughter and Kevin Smith's daughter.
oh, is that?
Yeah,
oh,
Lily Rose
okay.
Depp and Harley Quinn
Lily
Smith.
Rose Depp. Yes. Okay.
So I think he shows up in there. And then he does, Fantastic Beasts, Crimes of Grindelwald and all that kind of stuff. Fantastic Beasts, Where to Find Them. So I don't know. He's got a few things, I think, in the works. There's this new, what is this, like a historical drama? It's like Jean du Barry or something like that. Jean du Barry.
Oh, wasn't he in something that came out?
Just Waiting
Like
for the
last-
Barbarians from 2019. Another more period piece.
Yeah, I feel like there was something that he was in like last year that was like a costume, like a period.
Yeah, I think
piece
that's
thing.
the one. He plays Louis the 15th.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway.
All right.
So, Johnny Depp, for this one, to reference something alluded to in Finding Neverland, I feel like in the Rum Diary, there's a bit of a Peter Pan syndrome situation where it's like he should be, a 22-year-old,
Yeah.
but he's like
that
50.
Yeah, no, that was one of my notes.
Yeah.
Was that, like, especially having listened to a little bit of the audiobook, like Paul Kemp is supposed to be at the beginning of his career and
Exactly.
is like taking any job he can get.
Yeah. Yeah. What I do with movies that we talk about on the show that I don't necessarily care for, I make my list of what I liked and what I didn't like.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go through my what I liked list, and I'd love to hear your thoughts too. I mean,
Okay.
First, definitely Michael Rispoli. We love Michael Rispoli.
yes.
So much fun.
Yes.
Also, it feels like 1960. It doesn't feel like a modern movie just set in 1960. Like, they really did a good job of making it feel like it's late 50s, early 60s.
Definitely an authentic feel. Not that
Yeah.
either of us were around then, but
Oh,
I did not sense a fakeness about it.
sure. The one other thing is that it is a mainstream feature film set and shot in Puerto Rico about the difficulties going on at that time. Colonialism, capitalism, gentrification, the way that it's ruining the homes and the lives of the people who are native to the land. And it's focus on that, I think, makes it stand out as being, a film with a progressive message. Those are the things that I liked about it. How about you, Dan? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I'm going to echo you there because as we know from researching and looking for the right movie to cover for Puerto Rico, it was really difficult to find something that was set in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
About life in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Which there's a lot of movies out there about Puerto Ricans in other places.
Yeah.
But very few representing Puerto Rico in the way that the Rum Diary does. And
Or it's filmed in Puerto Rico but takes place in Cuba.
Right, exactly. So, like, the fact that it spotlights that and it focuses on the regardless of how much of it is fictionalized, the truth of American interests in Puerto Rico and American exploitation of Puerto Rico and Puerto Ricans. So, I mean, there's some very interesting, like, lines in there. Like, when at one point, I forget who, but someone says, like this is America.
Yeah.
And it's to this day, this kind of gray area.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also like, what from this movie, Puerto Rico gains very little from being quote unquote America.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't claim to be an expert or know like how much has changed or, how much Puerto Rico could benefit from statehood. It does seem like at this point it would be beneficial.
The only real things that I know are that, like, if you live in Puerto Rico, you can't vote in like a federal election. Like, that's something that's like, it should be something that you could do in Puerto Rico, but it's not. It just feels like Puerto Rico's like, the cousin.
Right, but it can't vote, but yet it's impacted by
Exactly.
American elections. Yeah. So that's right. For no other reason, hence the push for statehood.
Yeah.
Because also I feel like if it was like kind of like, all right, like Puerto Rico's either in or out, no more of this in the doorway stuff. And I think at this point Puerto Rico has become so dependent on the United States, not because we have made it dependent. The United States has made it, this kind of territory.
Yeah.
So, and in fact, just to while we're on the topic, I was asked as I was talking about our like cinematic road trip, why we weren't covering other U.S. territories.
Right.
And what I said was we went with the two because we wanted to round out to 52 episodes, a full year, but also Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. have these, significant movements for statehood.
Sure.
So
also there aren't very many movies set in Guam.
True.
Yeah.
Good point. But like Guam, we know you're out there.
We know you're out there. Shout out Guam.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, getting back to the Rum Diary, I like that. I like Michael Rispoli.
Yeah.
I like just the kind of feel of the film.
Yeah.
But beyond that, there's not much. I even feel like in terms of the like music, there was opportunity for a livelier soundtrack.
Yeah, it kind of just blended in. I did want to mention, just kind of since we were on the topic of Puerto Rico's place in as being an American territory, we grew up on the East Coast in New Jersey, and Dan, do you remember in like the 90s there were a lot of commercials about vacationing in Puerto Rico?
Puerto Rico, the shining star.
Exactly. And that's why in the intro to the episode, I say, the translation is "Greetings, Starfighters, Puerto Ricans," which is Boricuas is what Puerto Ricans essentially call themselves, and y estrellas brillantes, which is shining stars. And I don't know if that's used anymore as a marketing tactic, but it was such a big part of watching television in the 90s. And I don't think that
you're so right.
And I don't think that in the West Coast or Midwest, they were really promoting that as heavily. It's certainly a much easier destination to get to if you're on the East Coast. And a big draw is like, it feels like you're in another country, but you don't need a passport to get there. And it's a lot easier. You don't have all the same things. And watching this movie and the way that they're building these hotels and they're, destroying, a lot of the beauty that's there to make room for the tourists. And also, as we saw in the movie, a lot of what they do is they, they're trying to focus on the tourism culture that really just stays on the resorts, and they go to the bowling alleys, and that's it. They don't go out to the places outside of the resorts. And that's why, like, when visiting a place, been to Hawaii a couple times, and I always enjoyed getting out of the like hotel and like being out at like the small restaurants that are out in the middle of nowhere, and just exploring things that, you know, the tourists aren't doing as much of. In Hawaii, of course, you know, there's a lot of people who have moved there from the mainland, you know, to be residents who don't have that, you know, tourist culture. And I know that a lot of people also have moved to Puerto Rico in a lot of the same ways, but especially in the late 50s, early 60s, you know, that's when that, according to the lore of this movie, you know, that's really when like the tourist boom is starting to happen, because they're creating these, you know, isolated, you know, utopias for people to be there and get a taste of it without actually having to deal with the difficulties that come with being a native of the land.
Right. Absolutely. The walls are built high enough so that you don't have to see the poverty.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really liked in the movie, this is another thing, when you do see the natives kind of protesting and, you know, you go out and you see the way that they are processing the white settlers who are coming in. And there's that great moment where Aaron Eckhart's character has like his private beach, which it's illegal to have on Puerto Rico. That's something I did see. It's illegal to have a private beach, but he's saying, this is my private beach. You're not allowed on here. And it's just like, come on, man, what gives? And then to see the way that they, you know, associate Johnny Depp's character, Paul Kemp, with Aaron Eckhart's character, just seeing him out and about is just like, that guy sucks because he's associated with that other guy that really sucks.
Right. Right. Well, and also it's just like the pure ignorance in that line. I'm glad that you pointed that scene out, because it's another factor of something I liked about the movie, that it didn't just show like, okay, the altruistic journalist versus the you know, greedy businessman, but also showed the impact that all of these Americans, you know, white Americans, people from the mainland, are having on the people who are native to Puerto Rico and who really don't, like, they live there regardless of its status as an American whatever.
Yeah.
Like, that's where they were born, that's where they're from. And that you have this, like, just the, like, waspiest looking guy in the movie saying that, it really, it stands out and at least lets the viewer know, because for this movie, honestly, like, it's pretty slow. It's pretty,
I know,
it's pretty dull, and there's not much reason to really pay much attention, but that's one of those moments that really grabbed me.
Yeah, for sure. I'd like to talk about some of the things I didn't like about the movie.
Go
down my list.
Be here.
Self-indulgent passion project for Johnny Depp. He was a producer on it. He had a lot of control over, you know, what was really happening with the entire project from the beginning. And it's so obvious in every single moment how much he's just like, he just wants to be Hunter S. Thompson and, you know, walking in his shoes. And it's kind of like the name Paul Kemp. Why not just call it Hunter Thompson, you know? Also, I feel like the story would have been a lot cleaner without all of the substance abuse, which was really just like, this is the Hunter S. Thompson of it all.
Yep.
And it's like, you clear away a lot of that stuff and really focus on what could have been a really great movie about, you know, colonialization in Puerto Rico and the exploitation of, you know, the land.
Well, the role of journalists and journalism in that. And you get tastes of that when at the paper, when they're telling him, like, you know, nah, don't write about that. You write about this. And
which Richard Jenkins delivers beautifully in his exasperated way.
Oh, of course. He's so exasperated with it.
So exasperated.
Also in the way that Aaron Eckhart is trying to get Kemp to use his position as a journalist to sway public opinion.
That's interesting.
Well, that's really, it's also, it's something else that I teach as part of my curriculum is media literacy and media bias. And we usually think of it in terms of maybe, the last 30 years, really, since the advent of cable news. So it's always a good reminder to look at things like this and say, like, hey, wherever there's money and influence, you can buy bias. Like, you might not be like, this was a precursor to saying, like, well, I'm just going to own my own cable news network. Right. And have them, promote my views.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah. I wish Johnny Depp didn't do the Hunter S. Thompson voice. That goes in with what I was saying before about just being a passion project. The memorable moments, the kind of like the trailer moments, they feel really shoehorned in to distract us from, the kind of like uneven story that they're trying to show us. So like the sequence where Depp is sitting on Michael Rispoli's lap in the car and they're like bopping up and down and all that kind of stuff. Like
easy humor.
And, love to Michael Rispoli, but it's like, use the man in a better way. Paul and Snow in the car speeding to like the edge of that road. And it's like, it's just like, what is that? There's no purpose of this. There's no real payoff. There's just, I don't know, a moment of them together in a classy looking car. The fire breathing chase sequence, which is another thing where it's just like the chase, the fact that these locals are out for them is one thing, but it's like to do it in that way is just sensationalism. And finally, like the one thing that really like made me like at the very end of the movie, they had to give me one more reason to roll my eyes, but like the end credits text saying that like Paul and Chanel end up together, and it's just like so boring. It's like, just have her like disappear off to her family in Connecticut where, she's amongst her people and probably finds the next rich white sucker to cling on to.
Or doesn't, and like gets past that.
We don't need to know.
Yeah. It's not like, that's also when you say like, that's not the point of the movie. Well, right. What is the point? Because if it's not going to be about, capitalism, colonialism, exploitation, if you're just going to hint at these things, like, right. It's uneven. You find yourself, I mean, like the whole sequence with him being bought by Sanderson, Aaron Eckhart's character, it seems so fast and such it's like, oh, I thought that was going to be like, I thought that like we were going to follow this thread through like his moral dilemma as he's like enjoying. I was like, okay, so let's see what's going to happen. Kemp is going to get into enjoying this, and he's going to have an affair with Chanel, and he's going to go and he's going to start to do this stuff in the newspaper, and things are going to be going well, but he's not going to be able to live with himself as he starts to see more and more of the poverty and more of the, I thought, honestly, this movie would have been better had it gone in a much more cliched direction.
Well, instead, we see him leaving, and he's just like, all right, I'm just out of here. And then he ends up with Chanel. It's just like, oh, no, let the white people find each other and live happily away from here. And instead of like, becoming radicalized, the way that I feel like Hunter S. Thompson would have probably been more likely to, it's like, clearly his career took off in different ways, writing for Rolling Stone and, writing his books and everything. But like, this is the character of Paul Kemp. And this is somebody who sees beyond, what he's there hired to do and in his own way kind of makes things fall apart for the people who are in power. And it's like, wouldn't that character just become more radicalized and stay there to kind of fight the power?
Well, or wouldn't that character become more of a, like, become radicalized and become like kind of more of a Tom Joad, like wherever there's injustice, that's where I'll be. And as a journalist, say, because that's also what Hunter S. Thompson was, the type of writer and journalist who, like, one steady beat was not going to do it for him, and he needed to go ride with the Hells Angels, and he needed to go follow the McGovern and Nixon campaigns, and he needed to cover the Mint 500 race, I think it was, in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas,
right,
and to do all this. So like I don't mind if you're setting up the idea, especially if you're kind of playing with the idea that, like, yes, this is Hunter Thompson. I don't mind setting up the idea that, like, hey, this guy comes to a place, uncovers the bullshit, and then goes to the next place where there's bullshit.
Yeah.
But also establish that, and then also don't have a title at the end saying he gets together with Chanel.
Yeah.
You're right. That's unnecessary, and it actually takes away, it detracts.
Yeah. And there's also this whole thing throughout the movie that, he's trying to find his voice as a writer. And eventually write his book. And it's like, this experience gave him the ability to find his voice. And it's just like, either like go further into that or don't do that, because, we don't care about his aspirations as a writer so much as the story of what's happening in Puerto Rico.
Well, especially in 2011.
Yeah.
We don't care, and we don't care that it's Hunter S. Thompson. You could have gone even further and fictionalized this character even further, and like, you didn't have to stick to something that people were going to say, like, well, that's not really how it happened.
Right. Yeah.
Which even Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, where he's writing as a less thinly veiled, or more thinly veiled alter ego.
Yeah.
Like, it was swing and a miss for the Rum Diary. Swing and a miss.
All right. Well, Dan, how would you make it a swing and a hit?
How would I make it a swing and a hit?
Yeah. What would you do with the Rum Diary?
I wouldn't do anything with the Rum Diary. What I would do is look at some of Thompson's other work that could be very adaptable and speak to our current times, and also not have Johnny Depp involved. Take Johnny Depp out of it. You could also adapt it. So, like, what I'm thinking is primarily Fear and Loathing on the campaign trail, especially we're in an election year.
Yeah.
It's on the brain. But I mean, at this point, especially with all of campaigns, and I think people are generally more aware of other elections. It's kind of always an election cycle. So Fear and Loathing on the campaign trail, which I am reading, I'm going to read.
Oh, cool.
I'd never read it before, but I feel like that would be a really relevant book to adapt in exposing a lot about the business of politics by showing what is it, because he was the type of writer who wouldn't pull any punches. He's writing about two campaigns. Now, he was a supporter of George McGovern, really I would say for the entire election, because he was definitely not a supporter of Nixon, but he uncovers a lot of, like, what happens when a campaign goes from being more of a grassroots campaign, like an underdog campaign, to being the front runner.
Well, Dan, I want to remind you about a movie that we covered on this podcast, The Candidate.
Yes.
Because what you're talking about reminds me a lot of The Candidate, which is a fantastic movie with our boy Robbie Red, Fort Red Border. And I agree that like to do that type of thing again, with our modern sensibilities, because, Candidate was maybe like 71 or something like that. And that's of course a fictional story. It's somebody they're running to essentially lose, but then the kind of tides shift a little bit. And we are such a more politically aware society because we have access to 24-hour news cycles. We have information in our pockets. Also, we have, a complete clown show going on. And people are becoming way more aware and active with not just, federal elections, but also local elections. And what's happening, in different cities and towns. So I think that's totally a good point. You focus on something that's more relevant to what people, especially in America, are thinking about right now.
And I think it would be, and of course I can have more of an informed opinion after I've actually read the book.
Yeah.
But that it's, you could almost make it in a documentary style, of course, set in 1972.
Yeah.
With actors, but a filmmaker like someone like a Paul Greengrass, who can make narrative in a very, real style.
Exciting. Yeah.
Very exciting style, and kind of bring that, kind of what he brought to the Bourne movies,
right?
Bring that to, covering a political campaign.
What has Paul Greengrass done recently?
What has he done for us lately?
Yeah.
I can't think off the top of my head, but it did make one of the greatest gut punch movies ever in United 93.
United 93, which is, I think that depending on, I don't know, depending on who you ask, it's either great or it is awful.
Oh, I thought it was, it's hard to describe. I thought it was great. It really.
I'll tell you what, he did Captain Phillips, which I think is fantastic. Yes. He has one coming out next year called The Lost Bus. So that's with Matthew McConaughey and America Ferrara. Oh, that'll be good. Okay. He did News of the World a couple of years ago. That was 2020, the Tom Hanks movie.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah. I think that I actually have a copy of it in this very room, which has no other movies in it. But I think that's like one that I have a screener of that's just somehow ended up in the studio. But I've never watched it.
Well, no, of course, because if you get trapped in your cabin with only one movie to watch, you don't want it to be something you've seen before.
That's true. Yeah.
News of the World. Why not?
Yeah, why not? Paul Greengrass. There you go.
Tom Hanks. Come on.
Yeah.
How can you go wrong?
So I had a different thought for what we could do with the Rum Diary these days.
What do you think?
Well, not necessarily remake the Rum Diary, but to do a story properly, to focus on the things that the Rum Diary had going for it about Puerto Rico and colonialism and gentrification and exploitation, and do that, but focus on those things rather than the Hunter S. Thompson of it all. Mm-hmm. None of, don't have a substance abuse storyline unless it fits the narrative or it makes sense outside of a context of Hunter S. Thompson. So none of the like hallucinations or anything like that. It's okay to like maybe have somebody who has an issue with alcohol, but not for it to be a thing that you kind of look to for comedy and sensationalism. No. I don't want any of the cockfighting stuff. The failing newspaper thing is its own thing that I don't really care about. But the idea of a newspaper that exists for wanting to glorify tourist culture without reporting any real news or any of the shadiness of the people who are bringing the tourists in, but like I really like, just the story of maybe it's the love triangle of the person who's the shady developer who's trying to raise money to build these resorts, the woman that he's with, and the writer, the newspaper writer who is having the struggle between trying to show the realness that's going on in Puerto Rico versus the developer who's offering him gobs and gobs of money to glorify the idea of this this resort culture, and that struggle, and really get into that and make a big thing out of it. Having a love triangle, sure, that works. And that's a lot of fun. And of course, that's going to get butts in seats. But to show a movie, or to show a story about Puerto Rico in a way that that will resonate with people, and in 2011, the difference between 2011 and, right now it's 2024, the awareness that people have has just increased more greatly, especially the way that, maybe around 2015, 2016, with like the Dakota pipeline and the exploitation of native land, the knowledge of it has only grown more prominent, and the whole land back ideas that are going on with, public land that was promised to indigenous cultures and native tribes to actually go be good on those promises, and to have a story that isn't specifically about the indigenous people of this land. I mean, even though Puerto Rico is American territory, whatever, but it's a different side of the same coin.
So, and speaking of awareness, and there was also the hurricane that really hit Puerto Rico hard.
Yeah, that's true.
That was, I think, brought awareness to a lot of people, especially the president. Perhaps that Puerto Rico was, what its status was as he was, throwing paper towels.
Yeah, handed out paper towels. My God.
Yep. Oh, didn't hand them out.
Threw them. Yeah, because dare he get close to people of color.
Yeah. No. You got to keep those tiny hands clean.
Oh, jeez.
Anyhow, so, but yes, absolutely. I'm all for it. Yeah, let's have more movies about Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
In Puerto Rico by Puerto Ricans, by the way. Yeah.
Also, one other movie that we had considered for this was Under Suspicion with Gene Hackman and Morgan Freeman, which it's a very fascinating movie. It takes place in and is filmed in San Juan, Puerto Rico. It's a compelling story. Just wasn't the right tone we were going for this, but I recommend watching it if you want to see another Puerto Rico set and filmed movie. And it's a beautiful place, and certainly if I had the opportunity to pay it a visit, I would most certainly do that, but I would avoid the resorts.
Sounds good. I can't say that I would avoid the resorts, but I certainly wouldn't avoid the non-resort areas.
Yeah, of course. I'm just not a resort guy to begin with, but
you're not.
No, I don't like beaches.
You see, I don't love beaches, but I kind of enjoy beachside resorts.
I find nothing more boring than sitting on a beach. That's just me, though.
No. But sitting near a beach, I like the sound. Near a beach. I like this. I like the scent. I like the sound.
Mm-hmm.
I like the beachside vibe. I don't necessarily like the vibe of a lot of other people.
Yeah.
There, I like to read a book by a beach. Call me old fashioned. I read the book on my Kindle, so
there
not that old fashioned.
Yeah. Well, Dan, on our next episode, we're going to be dipping into the past. Once again, do you want to tell everybody what we're going to be doing on our next episode?
Yes. So we will be going from the warm sandy beaches of Puerto Rico to the snowy fields of Rhode Island.
Yeah.
As we visit outside Providence.
Yeah.
From 1999, based on the Peter Farrelly novel directed by Michael Corrente, starring Sean Hatosi, Amy Smart, Alec Baldwin, Richard Jenkins, George Wendt. And so I'm looking
Jonathan
forward. Jonathan Brandis. Yes, pour one out.
Yes, most definitely. It's a strange little movie that could have been really great, but had some things holding it back. We'll get into that on our next episode. Yeah. Well, Dan, as you are riding in a car on someone's lap with your foot on the gas, I wish you a good journey.
And a good journey to you.